I was staring at a hospital ceiling that smelled like bleach and metal when my phone vibrated. Once, twice, then it rang. I answered on the third ring because pain makes you slow, not careless. "Mom?" My daughter's voice was thin, cracked. "Grandma and Grandpa just drove away. I'm here alone." The machines beside me kept beeping, calm and indifferent. I sat up too fast. Pain flared. I didn't scream. "What do you mean alone?" I asked, already knowing. "They hugged me. Grandpa said they'd be right back. Then I saw their car turn the corner." Silence swallowed her next breath. I could hear the house behind her, too quiet for a 10-year-old. "I promised I was coming." I lied about how fast. Then I called them. They answered on speaker, wind in the background. Leisure, freedom. "She needs to toughen up, Tina," my mother-in-law said, like she was discussing weather. "She's not a baby anymore." That was the moment something in me went still. I used to believe family was an unbreakable contract. I met them years ago, smiling over casseroles and Sunday dinners, grateful for grandparents who volunteered for everything. They called me lucky. They told my husband I was steady, reliable, the kind of woman you could trust your child with. When he died, they doubled down on that image: helpfulness, support, love with conditions I didn't recognize yet. They offered to watch my daughter when I went in for surgery, insisted, actually, told me not to worry, told me they had it handled. Trust is a muscle. Mine tore quietly. Driving home from the hospital, still foggy from anesthesia, I saw the truth the way it always arrives, late and obvious. This wasn't carelessness. It was a test. They had been pushing for months. Comments about me being too soft, about my daughter needing discipline, about how kids these days crumble because mothers hover. I'd ignored it, smiled, chosen peace. I pulled into the driveway to find my daughter curled on the couch, phone clutched in both hands like a lifeline. She didn't cry. She didn't run to me. She just said, "I didn't know what to do." I held her long enough to feel her heart slow. Then I tucked her into bed and sat alone at the kitchen table. That's when I stopped reacting. Revenge doesn't begin with anger. It begins with clarity. I reviewed everything: the help, the favors, the paperwork they'd insisted on organizing after my husband's death, the joint accounts they'd suggested to make things easier, the guardianship documents they'd casually mentioned last Christmas. I didn't confront them. I thanked them for their honesty. I let them believe they'd won something. Then I made calls: a lawyer, a social worker, a therapist for my daughter, another lawyer, just to be sure. I documented everything: dates, times, statements. I wrote down, "She needs to toughen up," verbatim. I requested copies of every document they'd touched. I changed passwords they didn't know I knew. I closed accounts they assumed were permanent. Each step was quiet, boring, surgical. They mistook my silence for weakness. That was their final error. The execution wasn't dramatic. It didn't need to be. First, I filed a report. Not out of spite, out of record. Child abandonment doesn't sound philosophical when it's written in black ink. Then I updated custody protections, emergency clauses, no unsupervised visits, ever. I informed the school, the pediatrician, the aftercare program. Their names moved from approved to restricted with one signature. Finally, I invited them over. They arrived confident, smiling, carrying dessert. I let them talk about how I'd overreacted, about how kids need grit, about how they raised a man just fine. Then I slid the folder across the table. No yelling, no tears, just paper. They read, slowly. The color drained first, then the denial. My father-in-law laughed once, sharp and hollow. "You wouldn't," he said. "I already did." The confrontation ended the way all truths do, without negotiation. They threatened grandparents' rights. I showed them the report. They accused me of manipulation. I reminded them they'd left a child alone. They demanded access. I stood up. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't need to. When they left, they didn't hug me. They didn't look back. Good. Now, months later, I replay that hospital ceiling sometimes. The beep, the ring, the moment I realized love doesn't protect you, decisions do. My daughter sleeps through the night again. She laughs louder. She knows who comes when she calls. As for me, I don't feel guilty. I don't feel angry. I feel precise. They wanted her to toughen up. I taught her something better. I taught her that when someone betrays you, you don't break. You remember, you plan, and you make sure it never happens again.